Hello everyone, Michael here. I thought I'd do a quick video, at least intend to keep it quick, about the main signs that you're doing well financially or going to do well financially that have really nothing to do with money, or at least the amount of money in your bank accounts and things like that. So before we dive into it, I'll just quickly say for anyone who's new here, this is video number 3 of my YouTube journey, where I just try to give out the advice that I wish I had when I started. I spent a lot of time online and researching, reading books, trying to find the information that helped me. I want these videos to be, informational, or informative, and also kind of conversational and not too flashy. Rather have the content hopefully speak for itself. And ultimately, I think we need to find a way to make talking about finances less taboo, less weird, so that it's easier to learn from others and we can all improve. So with that, let's dive right into it. Let me move my notes over just enough that I can see them right here, and we'll get going. So I guess these points are really, what does it take to do well financially if you're just starting out? The actual computing the numbers and making sure you're not spending more than you earn, and doing the math of it is actually, doesn't feel this way, but I think it's the easiest part. The tricky part is if you have habits or limiting beliefs, a mindset about your finances that's holding you back. That's much harder to change, because it was probably formed over the last 20 years of your life, and now to undo it quickly, it's very difficult. But the first sign that you're set up to do well financially is you don't care what other people think. Now, there's another end of the extreme where you don't care enough what other people think. I don't think many people are there, so I think it's safe to say you don't care enough. You don't care what other people think. What I mean by that is, this is basically the classic, don't give in to peer pressure, aka keeping up with the Joneses when it comes with spending and inflating your lifestyle. Fancier car, bigger house, newest phone, all that stuff. At some point, you just have to let people make fun of your car. At least that's what it was for me. So I currently drive a 2005 Toyota Prius with stains on the cloth interior. It's not leather. Has a little rust on the left rear quarter panel. And I mean, it's a Prius, and I'm like 6'2". And side note, for being 6'2", a Prius is actually, for how small it is on the exterior, how small it looks, it's pretty comfy. It has, obviously I would prefer a bigger car, but I wouldn't say I'm cramped. Anyway, almost could make a whole video about how much all the ideas I have about the Prius. It's great for the wallet too. Doesn't use a whole lot of gas. But anyway, when I roll into work and park in the parking lot next to the newest Chevy Colorado pickup truck and GMC Yukon Denali type vehicles, it's like, if you really love cars, okay, so I have there's a couple guys I work with who are really into cars. Like, they have project cars, Porsches and stuff like that. If cars is your thing, your hobby, there is nothing wrong with spending money on cars. Nothing wrong on spending money on something that brings you fulfillment, working on engines and stuff like that. But me, I just need it to get me from here to there and not cause me too much trouble, be reliable. That's what the Prius is. And people talk about it. They make jokes about it. Whenever it snows, they're like, "Oh, are you gonna be able to get home?" It's like, first of all, the only things that really matter when there's how are your tires? I have great tires. They're probably better than yours, so I'm more worried about you than me. But yeah, you don't want to. If you don't give in easily to peer pressure and you don't let that stuff affect your financial decisions, you're already ahead of so many people, unfortunately. Um, One thing that kind of ties to that is I hope we've all seen at least a few commercials that you could almost smell the BS in them. Some of the lies and tricks, the marketing tricks that are used to sell certain things. You know, if you buy this, you're going to be in a higher, basically have more social status. That's what it is with cars. Pretty much any car commercial, especially like the German cars. But every manufacturer has their more luxury brand. And it's buying status. If that's something that you're chasing, you're setting yourself up for a more difficult time, unless you can find a way to make enough money to support it. Point number two, is you know where your money goes, and you know where it comes from. You understand your numbers, essentially. So I've talked before about tracking your spending. That's probably the biggest one. But there are other numbers that you should know too, and probably do their own video someday. Things like how much do you need to retire? That's based on how much you spend. And then as you're saving for your retirement, saving up that nest egg, if you're somewhere between still working and not retired yet, you have to be able to track your progress. So that would be things like your net worth, would help tell you that. And also super important is your savings rate. That's a good video. Having lots of ideas even while I make a video. Your savings rate is basically, it sounds obvious to me, but let's say you make $100 and you put 10% into your 401k at work, and then after that you put whatever is equivalent to 10% more into, say, a Roth IRA outside of work. Well, your total savings rate is 20% in that little scenario, and obviously the higher that is, the faster you'll hit your retirement number. And there's actually math and charts that can predict how long it'll take. So if you're starting from zero, do I have time to pull one of those up yet? Maybe not. I'll just tell you the idea and we can talk about it later. So let's say you're starting at zero and you need $1 million. It doesn't really matter what your end number is, because it's all percentage based and it scales up and down. But if you're starting at zero and say you're investing in something like the S&P 500 index or a total U.S. stock market index, and you assume a certain percent return, you can actually calculate how many years. If I save 40%, I'll get there in basically this many years. Obviously, there's going to be some variation because of the variation of the price of the stocks. Nothing is. You can't predict the future. Okay, we all know that. But you can build a pretty good estimate, and having an estimate, having a goal, and tracking it is way better than doing nothing. But anyway, if you save 10%, take a long time. 40%, it's actually pretty fast. And if you get really crazy and you're saving more than half, it's actually diminishing returns. So going from 10 to 40, that's a 30% increase. Going from 40 to 70, you'll shorten the number of years you have to work more. Let's say it shaves 10 years off of your working career by going from 10 to 40. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to actually go pull up the real numbers. But going from 40 to 70 might only save 8 or 7. So diminishing returns. But anyway, knowing your savings rate is another way you can help predict when you could possibly quit your job or just hit your financial independence number. I think that means it's time for number 3. The third point, the third thing that helps you know that you're going to do well financially is you like to learn. You know how to Google stuff. You read books every once in a while, or you're willing to talk to people about money and not get that icky feeling, be scared, timid. Basically, you do your research. So there's tons of free, good free resources online for this type of thing. Also some bad ones. Man, I feel like I should list a few, but maybe I'll start with one. One book that really helped change the way I think about money is Your Money or Your Life by Vicky Robin and Joe Dominguez. So a lot of the stuff I talk about, a lot of the methods I use come from them, or I learned from them, or shared by them, that kind of thing. So if you could start with one, that would be a good place. There's obviously more that I could list, but I don't want to just make this a big old rambling of books and websites and things that you could look at. But yeah, so the 3 points: if you're not easily swayed by the opinions of others, if you know your numbers, and if you like to research, like to learn, and maybe we should say that, if you're humble enough to admit that you don't know everything about money, because unless your parents taught you, like, there's plenty of stories, plenty of people I know that say they're in school, they didn't really learn about finances in school, which is funny because everyone will have to manage it someday. And I had a personal finance class in high school, but it was actually probably one of the better ones relative to like other schools in the nation. But I remember the main thing I remember from that class is writing your check and balancing your checkbook. It's like no one does that anymore. So there's a lot of topics that aren't covered enough. They just don't have enough time. It's not necessarily the teacher's fault or anything, but yeah, if you're doing those 3 things, chances are it may not feel like you're doing fine right now. You might not have bank accounts to show it, but you will get there just because your mindset is more already aligned with where it needs to be to do well financially. So kind of the motivational point there is, if you're at that stage, the rest is actually easier than getting to the stage you're already at. And if you're not at that stage, maybe there's some ideas in there that you could think about, why do I care so much about what my coworkers think of my car, if that's you? I feel like I need to think of other examples, but that's just such an easy one. It's a very common one. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. Let's see. Well, one bullet point I had in there that I didn't mention was you have a plan for your life, but I feel like that's big enough that we should talk about that later. So I'll see you in the next video.